All right, so it is July 19th. This is our little subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee on strategic planning for the Sustainability Commission. And Patrick Tallarico and Tracy Sheldon are here, and from the city, and David Friedman and Roy Clark are here from the commission. So go ahead and get started. I wanted to have a touch base on this topic. We haven't talked in a long time. And for a couple of reasons. So one is I think we need to try to move some conversation forward in advance of our potential offsite, or at least discussion with the Sustainability Commission on priorities. So I wanted to kind of frame that out a little bit, and also talk about what kinds of things we can start to do to gather information to help inform that conversation. So I wanted to kind of back up a little bit and mention that Justin has asked, or will be asking, all of the commissions and committees to identify priorities for the council. So we're sort of working through what that would look like and what that would mean. I've started to develop a draft of a document that we might work from, but I wanted to share that with you. So there's a bigger audience for what we're going to be doing than just us. And so anyway, so I just wanted to mention that.
And that's what he brought up at the 1PS meeting.
Right. And so there will be a public component to that, as well as commission and committee inputs to that. We're still talking about how that conversation with council will go and what that might look like. So I'm not too clear about that. I did mention my concern with, having a ton of stuff thrown at them, that, they're going to get 10 things from each commission or committee, and then that's 100 things, and can't really do anything with that. So again, I'm not exactly sure how the priorities of the commissions and committees sort of mesh with the overall council priorities. So I think part of it is for them to get a better sense of what the commissions and committees are working on, so that they understand that and they can redirect if needed. So anyway, so we'll see how that plays out. I did want to share with you, I've started to think about a little template that we might use. And let me see if I can share that. So we would have a little description of the committee or commission. And this is kind of primarily with an eye towards the council, but this is something that we could use for our purposes, discussion purposes too. But I thought that it would be good to have some sort of area for ongoing priorities or areas of focus. So things that we know we have to get done in the next year. And so I identified a couple of those here, like the foodware ordinance implementation, SB 1383, we know that's a priority. And then I think greenhouse gas emissions reductions will continue to be a priority for us. And so continuing to work through those potential actions we could take. And then some information on new priorities. So like the night sky ordinance, if people wanted to put that forward as something we thought should be a priority. So again, I think there are a few things that we know are going to be happening as priorities, and then things that we could put forward. And then I think it's worth having a conversation about things that could be deferred or eliminated as well. So to the extent that if there's something that we think that we're spending time on that we probably shouldn't be, then that's something we could talk about with commission members. One example of that is the community garden. We've already talked about Parks and Rec taking that over. So again, it's something that we spend some time on, but again, it's not really our area of focus. But we like that we have it, but again, it fits more, I think, with a Parks and Rec genre. So anyway, I think those are kinds of things that I would like to, I think they might be interested in. So I wanted to get your thoughts and feedback on that to see what else might be helpful. Again, is something that might go forward to council. So.
Are we going to attempt to do an update of the sustainability plan in the coming year? I mean, that's, that's a tall order. Obviously, we
Right.
probably want to get a consultant, whether it's Placeworks or the people from, the last go around, et cetera. I think you mentioned that you have a budget for that. So I think it dovetails there. And related, well, then remains a concern. I'll probably talk about a little bit tomorrow evening in the commissioner comments, but making sure that the sustainability plan meshes with, implements, coordinates, et cetera, with the general plan update. So you can, a sort of coordination needed with general plan update. The two of them go together. Particularly since the general plan has to have the climate adaptation mitigation as part of the safety element. And so the two of them really need to, we need to get more involved in that. And that's, sort of a preview of one of probably my commissioner comment for tomorrow night of, getting us back in the ball game on the general plan, because I think the train is kind of leaving without us on that.
Yep. I agree. And actually a question for you on that, David. I was watching, I'm honestly not sure what it was. I think it was the Planning Commission meeting where they were going through some of the general plan components and especially in terms of housing.
Yeah.
And were they predicting like a doubling of growth in the next like 10 years or something? Or
yeah, I mean, if you look at the thing, and I think you saw the comments, I sent in fairly detailed comments to planning staff and I copied you. So yeah, it doubles. There's more like 20 years, but yeah, there's a doubling of population. Placeworks, it's based on a bunch of assumptions in the Placeworks memo, and they posted it for the workshop last Tuesday, and it's also in the materials for, I think, both planning and city council discussion. But it's based on an assumption that the occupancy rate is going to go from 63 to 95%, and whether that is an accurate assumption. So it's more in the occupancy rate increasing as opposed to we're going to double the number of units.
Got it.
So there's a bunch of assumptions, like most assumptions. It's putting your finger up and pulling a number. I'm not sure that's a particularly accurate assumption that we're going to have a 95% occupancy rate as opposed to all of these, vacation rentals, second homes that we've traditionally had. And I haven't really seen anything that's going to change in the next 20 years unless we, get rid of vacation rentals or some other, major policy thing. So that's where it is. But obviously, so that's the housing element. But once again, we need to talk about, and you saw my comments, light comments, but that's as much as I had time for, to try and deal with the sustainability issues. Like, can we please build housing next to, bus development, bus lines and things like that. So yeah, so you're correct, but that's all the more so that we as a sustainability commission need to get more involved and make sure that what we're doing matches with what the planning commission is doing. That's a document for the next 20 years. And our sustainability plan is probably more than, more like 5, like the one we have now. But we have to look forward, and once again, the state has its goals, which do look forward that far and for even further.
Right, and it seems like we should have some, I don't know, conversation at least with them to say, okay, if you do that, then have you done the numbers in terms of what that means in terms of greenhouse gas emissions increases, whatever water use increase, whatever the impacts may be, that this is something that we would want, or that we need to incorporate some other elements that actually offset this. So,
well, and of course, one of the challenges is you're dealing with competing state policies as usual, which is build more housing, which we all agree needs to be done. And I don't think there's anything, certainly this city council is in favor of building more housing, particularly on the lower, market, lower, entry level or affordable, as we've seen. But then the state says, reduce your GHG emissions. And I'll mention it tomorrow, but the governor gave an order to CARB to try to advance the carbon neutrality by 10 years to make it 2035 as opposed to 2045. So what do we need to do to try to reconcile those two things? And there are things, and I'll mention again, I want to do overlap tomorrow, but there's a whole bunch of building decarbonization efforts that are being baked into state policy, and we need to be aware of those and make sure that what we're doing is fully aligned with that. And that's one of my objectives, of course. But the overall thing is we need to adopt the sustainability plan, updated, because it's old. It'll be 6 years old by next June. And most particularly, and that's my comment, commissioner comment from tomorrow night, is we need to get back in the game and coordinate with planning people for the general plan update. And I'd really like to see us heavily involved in climate adaptation required by the element. That's state law, and I think we know more about it and have more of a kind of feel about where things are going than the planning staff does.
Right, and I have, they are planning to get me that report as soon as they're done, so they should have something in the coming weeks.
So those are, those are sort of what I'm looking at, obviously. And I don't know whether you want to talk about it now, talk about it later, talk about it, at what forum. But, I'll mention again tomorrow is we need to be looking at the, some staff report you want to get the climate action roadmap to council on September 30th. So, and we can discuss that tomorrow, but I'd like to sort of, have us, maybe it's just the people on this call, but on a different sort of wearing a different hat, of whether you call it green building or, whatever you want to call it, but we need to work very closely to make sure we've got something ready to go. And obviously I've got my, my stuff that I'm separately working on, but I'd like to see that part of the package. So, those are to my mind sort of the key elements of, waste reduction is mandated by state law. GHG is policy, if not law. I mean, those are goals as opposed to SB 1383 as a mandate. GHG is policy, but it's strong policy. And generally the city is, aligned with those policies. So I would agree with that. So those are, I would think, is the thing. The other issue, which I think is maybe not for us, but then the question is, if it's not for us, yeah, thank you. Climate adaptation and I would say adaptation and mitigation; those seem to be the buzzwords, and mitigation strategies. What's probably not for us, but if it's not for us, then who is it for in City Hall? Is something that is in the 2016 plan, and I think should not be our responsibility, but is nevertheless a key issue, is this green jobs. I mean, we never did anything about it. I think it's beyond our scope. It fits well with a rather lengthy discussion of economic development at the last council meeting, and what is the city doing to support economic development. I think it's better that issue be kicked over to Jay and his team, and particularly if there's going to be, I think, an assistant city manager focusing on economic development. I understood that from the discussions. So yeah, deferred or eliminated, I would probably say referred to. I wouldn't say deferred or eliminated. Yeah, put an arrow economic, yeah, referred to economic development department or division or whatever, Jay's, whatever. Deferred, referred, or eliminated. Yes, that's referred. It's not that it's not important. It is, but it's beyond our scope. We didn't do anything about it in the last 6 years. We're just not going to do anything about it in the next 6 years. It's beyond. It's beyond our limited, bandwidth, both in time and budget. That doesn't mean that we can't have input and suggestions of what should be done, aligning with what's going on and in the Imperial Valley for lithium and what could be done to support that, and generally green jobs, but that needs to be referred to other folks.
Roy, any thoughts?
I have some. Where to begin? One thing is I agree that we should actually revise the sustainability plan, but we probably should take a quick look at it relatively soon and strip it down to the things that are the most important. Every time I read it and I'm done with it, I can't remember what's in it. The way it's written, with all the pictures and things, it's not very clear. And there's a lot of those things that a lot of things in it that didn't get done, and we should just strip them out of the plan and come up with a basic skeleton of a plan that we can use going forward. And there were 3 things that are happening. There's reviewing and revising the sustainability plan. There's this initiative that Justin talked about for strategic planning, and there's the general plan. And those should all really be tied together. And in listening to David, I'm thinking that one theme that should go through all of it is fighting climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the other, departments and so forth should be thinking about that as well. It's just not the responsibility of the Sustainability Commission. But I think we're on track with our approach that we want to suggest. And I think we need to make that as a major theme for everything that's happening going forward, fighting climate change and adaptation and mitigation. Just one little example. I've heard Grace Gardner mention several times that there should be more trees in the city to provide shade. And that's certainly a great idea. But in the climate that we have, some of the trees that we have may not survive. So if it's going to be an objective to have more shade, we need to think about how we do that in light of climate change.
Right. I completely agree. And I actually saw and commented on something where I edited the language around shade trees. It was the bike, there was some bike guidance that's being developed by CGAT-VAG, and I put in there, they were emphasizing trees, and I said trees, shade structures, or awnings, depending on the location, because I think that we need to think more creatively about shading, quite honestly. So
yeah, you wrote that somewhere. I remember reading it. I thought that was a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Shade trees tend to use an awful lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, A, do they survive? And B, are they water friendly? If you look at lush and efficient, there just aren't too many what I would call shade trees,
Right.
Here and there, but they're not really, they're not really adapted to our, Sacramento, and even Sacramento has issued.
Yeah, the types of trees that survive here are more shrubby type trees, and even like those Palo Verde plants, which are lovely, they're pretty low, right? So you're not walking under them a lot.
Yes. I actually have a pine tree that doesn't seem to be too water intensive, but that's a tree. So yeah, those are all the things that we need to we need to look at. I agree with Roy. I mean, you know, when it's 120 throughout the entire summer, you know, that really changes what this city will look like. I think it was, you know, some British media outlet was interviewing somebody saying Palm Springs will be literally toast, you know, in the next 20 years. And you know, yeah, we need to be thinking about that as our. I agree with Roy. That's our sort of through line, if you will. A, as it is required by the state, and B, it's our reality. It's our new normal, and we have to get used to it.
Yep, I agree. And I think the way to think about these things potentially is immediate term, short term, and then long term, right? Because it's really, what does the next year look like? What does the next 5 years look like? And then what does the next 20 years potentially look like from the, but I do agree, Roy, with your observation about the fact that there are some thematic themes that need to be better integrated across the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe that emphasizes the importance of getting the roadmap to them as soon as possible and making those themes really strong there, and emphasizing that they need to be integrated across the city.
Well, I mean, that's my frustration, as you know, with the planning commission, and you know, well, we can talk about that tomorrow whenever you want, but they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing. I'm not sure it's not so much that they're talking with me, it's just that I'm forcing myself into those discussions, of course, copying you, Patrick, but they need to be, you know, you're all in one department, excuse me, 3 divisions in one department. And yeah, that needs to be a core. We start with that, and then you sort of extend it to facilities, parks and recreation, really all of those things, you know, fleet management,
Right.
you know, what are we doing, you know, for all these other things, you know, reducing water at the parks, what can we be doing there? You know, shade structures at parks. There's just so much. We don't have a whole city approach. Maybe that's the point, I think, Roy, that you're making, is we need a whole city approach to these issues. It isn't just sustainability. It can't just be sustainability.
And interesting.
Yeah.
I talked with Randy Evans a couple of weeks ago, and he used to work for the city of Portland. He said that they actually abolished their sustainability department, but all of the other departments in the city have to have an element of sustainability in them.
Right, right. And I had mentioned that actually to Justin when he started. I said, we really need to move to a more matrixed model where we have staff in every office that's paying attention to these things, because we just can't do it.
Yeah.
The other thing that strikes me is that we need to do it earlier, right? So it needs to be an early part of the conversation, like when the city park is being designed and you want to do a whole area of turf, and you know, you want to water that and think that it's not going to survive, and so then come to us later and say, are there any alternatives? That's not really very helpful. So anyway, so I think earlier and a whole city approach, I think, is a good way to put that.
That's sort of my, that's my bet noir of, you know, so yeah, that's something.
Yeah. Well, and you know, that I'm trying to think, that could be also a good message for council, right? To say, we need more of a whole city approach to these issues, because we can't be at every meeting and we can't be there all the time. So we need to figure out a way to integrate everything into those decisions. And I think they're starting to pick up on that a little bit too, like with their conversation about wanting somebody from sustainability on the parking plan discussion, or, you know, getting our input on the biking thing. So anyway, so I think that's happening a little bit here and there, but it's not really integrated yet. So,
and that's really what we need to start pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And my remedy for the moment is in fact to be at all of these meetings and offer comments, but I can't do it, and my term expires in 11 and a half months. So somebody needs to be, either whether it's staff or whatever, people need to be be focused on the issues that I am currently focused on, but it's not going to be forever.
There needs to be ownership in all of the departments.
Yeah.
And it may take time for people to understand the importance.
And then that's the question of, how, and that needs to be direction from council and from the city manager that, mixed staffing is, early review, et cetera, matrix staffing, whatever. All the stuff that I'm doing on the energy code, which we'll hear about tomorrow, that should be done really in the building division because they own that code. And once again, my frustration is that they may own it legally, but they don't own it on a day-to-day basis. And I know more about it than I think they do, and that's dangerous. So forgive me for preaching to the choir here, but it'll just been a lot of work.
No, I think that's a good element to potentially highlight in terms of priorities for council, at least to make them aware of if there are organizational priorities that need to be addressed in terms of staffing needs or something like that, that the commission feels is important. So.
Yes. I've informally raised that issue with Lisa, and I said, people need to be embedded in each of the departments because there's only so much. Either you substantially bulk up sustainability, which I'm not sure is the option, or I agree with what Roy was saying in the Portland approach is that even if we keep mission and sustainability, you need to have embedded sustainability officers in each of the front line. And I think we had discussed that last meeting back in January, whenever that was. But it's a core issue and become even more, as climate change becomes our day-to-day reality, and also sort of seeing what the planning commission is doing without us and building is doing without anybody. It just is, it's frightening to be part of my reaction to all of this. And that can be put in the roadmap, to council. Is that essentially our, your vector is and I'll mention tomorrow that I can work with you, or we can have, so however you want to do it, we need to beef up that document. And when you want to stick it in this group here, or green building, I kind of defer to you guys. It doesn't matter what hat we put it in. But as I'll mention tomorrow, we have a lot of work to do between now and getting that ready for council. And I'm happy to work, with you and Roy and whoever on that document.
Yeah, and actually, I was talking to Cindy Cairns about schedule, and I can't remember if this was bumped from the 30th, or I think it's right in that time frame though. So I think if it's not the 30th, then it's the first meeting in October. So.
That's exactly what I was hoping that you were not going to say. Of course, that's when I'm going to Chicago for Northwestern, and I'll
check with her and see.
I'm not canceling it. It's my 100th year anniversary of my school and 40th year reunion.
Well, it's also the day after my birthday, so I don't really want to do it then either. So.
If I have to phone it in, I'll phone it in. I'll know tomorrow what the schedule is for that day.
Okay.
But it's sort of just my luck that it would be scheduled for the one day I'll be out of town.
Okay, I'll check with her on the time. Okay. All right.
So we should probably distribute the 2016 sustainability plan to the group, since the players have changed over the years.
Right, so we'll definitely do that prior to the meeting. In fact, we'll probably do it after the meeting tomorrow.
Send it out after the meeting?
Yeah, so I think that what I would like to do with this group is kind kind of talk a little bit about process, like how we want to do this. So we could meet a couple of times in August and talk through that document and do what you were talking about, Roy, is maybe kind of go in there and highlight the things we think are critical for moving forward. I think that the biggest thing for me about that document is there's so many things in it that I mean, it's like pick one thing in each area. So.
And there's a lot of them that say, educate so-and-so or coordinate with so-and-so. And that just adds to the burden, things that we've been talking about. So those types of things should be eliminated.
Right. I mean, I would rather look at it to say, okay, what is the most important thing we could do in this area to move it forward? Like maybe use that as the question for our guide. Like, as we go through, what are the two most important things that we could do? So.
And with that matrix, the Excel spreadsheet, I think would be easy to do that.
Right.
Well, I suggest that we do that sooner rather than later in August, and then that will help us inform what we want to put in the climate action roadmap, because so much of, once again, that team's, so then that's when we tell council, these are what our priorities are at a high level, and then it can be, detailed a little bit more in the sustainability plan. But yeah, I think we should do that. And
right, because there are some things in there, additional things in there, I think that we're.
Yeah, but at least we can start with review of, and I think we started it, keep, delete, refer, that's the whole sort of idea of what we need to do there.
Yeah.
And to keep it a more manageable with measurable goals. I think one of the reasons why we haven't done as much as we had, because the goals are too kind of, I wouldn't say they're wishy-washy, but they're not, X, reduce X, or whatever. I probably, because the energy goals are actually measured because they're tied to state policy. And as you've known, I've sort of been, focusing on that because those are measurable goals. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions to 1990 levels by 2020. That's a measurable goal. We achieved it because it was a measurable goal. We acted to it.
Right.
So, focus on things that we can measure and then act on.
And that's one of the points that's made up front in the current plan, but there's nothing in the plan where there are any metrics identified, other than some little circles that have pies in them that are partially colored in that seem to indicate progress. One thing I was thinking is that perhaps tomorrow night we can ask for 2 or 3 volunteers and then have a session in August where we just all get together, look at that spreadsheet and go through it and do exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
We could knock it out in 2 hours.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we could do that if we had a couple more people. So, yeah, let's do that. Okay.
Tracy, the plan exists electronically, doesn't it? I think all the hard copies are long gone.
It does. It is electronic, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the link is there if you know where to look for it. I think, Roy, you and I are the only 2 kind of survivors of the first round. I think you had just joined the commission when it was approved.
Right. Yes. I went to the meeting. I actually wasn't on the commission.
Oh, yeah.
In June, and I still.
Which means I'm the only one who's on the commission. It was June 2016, yeah, because you were named, at that, I guess, council meeting, at which it was approved June 16th or whatever it was, 23rd, I think, 2016.
I was there. I didn't sit up on the stage like you did.
Okay. All right, but I was involved. But then we should also, maybe that's a separate meeting, but then we should also have, there was a lot of public input. So we need to think about, not necessarily immediately, but then we need to say what's our, where do we get public input on this, which we should, noting the rather limited success of all of the public input on the, if you have a workshop, will they come? And the answer is mostly no.
And I was thinking about that too, because there's a lot of pressure from council to have public input on everything.
Yeah.
And you're right, and we've experienced the difficulty in getting people together and making comment, but then you think about the subject of that we're working on. What do we want people to say? No, climate
isn't important.
we don't have to do anything to reduce greenhouse gas.
Right.
So
Right.
some of it is a given, and maybe we could have input from the public later in terms of what types of things would you support or would you initiate to meet this goal, rather than is this a goal at all?
Right. Right. Maybe it's more about implementation ideas than about the actual priorities and goals.
I mean, I think we kind of know just from listening to some of the public comment, but I'm not sure those goals are necessarily realistic. There's a lot of people saying don't build, so we don't have, you know, more people using water, whatever, and that's not a realistic comment compared with based on, you know, state you know, housing requirements. So
Right.
so yeah, it's better to be oriented. You know, what would you support? You know, what would you support? How, you know, how much more would you be willing to pay for all of these things? They're not, you know, these are not, you know, what I am working on is, well, if you insulate your house, you know, it's going to cost you this much upfront. You're going to save lots of money in the end because it has to. But none of these things are free lunches, and that's, we have to manage expectations. This is not free. You know, you even when you want all of these goals and you support all of these goals, there's a cost to them in terms of lifestyle, adjusting lifestyle, and potentially, you know, paying more for things, or paying for things that you didn't pay for before. And you know, we have to once again sort of manage people's expectations.
Right. And I think what's interesting to me is that I think there are a lot of things that we could do that don't really even involve the public necessarily. So like if we're doing building ordinances, that doesn't, you know, public's not really going to weigh in a lot on that. But if we are talking about getting rid of lawns, I mean, that's something that the public's going to care a lot about and might have some say about. Because I think, quite honestly, I think that's probably the direction that we may be heading for water use reduction. I mean, I think that if things continue to go as they are, I just don't see it feasible for people to have lawns anymore, honestly. I just
Well, there's not much allowed on, I think I mentioned that there's these super wheelos. So a bunch of cities are now having beyond wheelo. So we have wheelo is required. I was also involved in that. And as far as I know, it's enforced. I do see that in reference in the, you know, all the planning commission approvals that landscaping is for wheelo. So I think planning commission does a good job on that. That being said, that ordinance is from quite a few years ago, and the state law is from 2015, maybe even earlier, because I was already implemented in 2015, early 2016. So yeah, we can go beyond that, and you know, we can. That's something that we can look at, is obviously in coordination with DWA, but we can look at, you know, what do we need to do to do that. As I said, my existing building proposal also includes, you know, water efficient fixtures, because I think that's important, and that's really low cost and high gains, both in terms of water use and energy. So that's the kind of thing that we should be doing as well. I mean, water is an issue. Obviously, the city has what, you know, parallel jurisdiction, but there's nothing. We're certainly allowed to amend our building code to go beyond WELA. And DWA, of course, you know, would support that. But that's when we get to water, you know, we should obviously sit down with Ashley and see if she has a wish list of, you know, what we can be doing to work on together. they're in a difficult spot because they're in the business of selling water at least as much as, they have a conservation mandate, but on the other hand, they make money by selling water, not by not selling water. So that's a bit of a balancing act for them.
All right, so yeah, so I agree. We need to think about the public input side and how that plays out. So let's see. So I think, David, when do you leave for your vacation?
My quote unquote vacation is all of 3 days. I'm leaving the evening of Monday, the 16th. I'm taking the evening Flix bus because there's an ECE board meeting that afternoon. And I'm in LA the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and I'm already committed on the 17th to my workshop. I'll mention that tomorrow night. And then there's a whole bunch of other workshops. So I'm going to try and do a couple of touristy things in LA. I'm not sure that I'm going to get farther than my hotel room for most of that, and then go to the bowl on the thing. So those are the 3 days that I'm physically not in Palm Springs. And then I'll be in Chicago Joshua's right. I'm in Chicago the 13th through the 17th of October.
Okay, so if we wanted to have a meeting on this topic in August, it's really the first 2 weeks.
Yes.
So
whatever planning has got up their sleeve on their stuff, but yes.
And actually that planning meeting, I think, yeah, they were targeting those first 2 weeks too.
Yeah. Please talk to them because I'm not sure what they want to do.
Yeah, I don't need it either. So
Well,
at first they were talking about a joint commission meeting. And I was like, we're not doing that.
Okay. All right, but the direction, I mean, I want to hijack that. That's a discussion for tomorrow. But the point is that the direction from council and actually from the planning commission is to involve sustainability commission. It's just not clear what they want to do. So. I'll make that
so what we'll do is we'll announce it tomorrow, and then we'll set something up for like a half-day meeting the week of August 1st. What we might do is schedule 2 of them just in case we need them. Something the week of August 1st and then something the week of August 7th. And I think that
my calendar.
So David, you're back on the 20th?
Yeah, is it my only is only that week. It's only the week of the 16th, and I'm here on the 16th and available until the DC board meeting.
Okay. So we also could 20
Plus is at 7:40, although that doesn't give much time, whatever.
The
But,
23rd of August is also a possibility if we need to do that.
so the 16th would work for me, at least in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, I've got webinars in the morning, so Mondays actually aren't ideal for me because I have classes. But okay, they're recorded. So
one other thing is, if we get that done in August, that'll be a good start for the offsite that we're talking about in September.
Right. Right. Good. All right. Well, why don't we, let me just look here. We've been trying to meet with PSDS on the solid waste front on Wednesdays. So maybe if we looked at a day that wasn't Wednesday.
my calendar.
So we could do Monday the 2nd. I think it's wide open.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see.
Could do it in the afternoon, maybe.
Yeah. I've got the termite folks that at 2 o'clock, but they'll just come in and do their thing. Mondays work for me, but preferably in the afternoon. I have morning classes.
Yep.
But you know, they're being reported that the afternoons work better for me.
How about you, Roy? Monday the 2nd?
Mondays usually are open.
Okay.
They've been started.
What about that following Monday? Let's look at that.
Yeah, that's also fine.
Okay.
And then I can't do the afternoon. So yeah, the 16th is probably not good for me, but I can do the 23rd. I actually would, yeah, I'd like to, because I may have some prep to do for the workshop the next day. So yeah, we can skip the week of the 16th.
I actually have, I think I have to check my schedule. It's either the 2nd or the 9th. I'm going to be coming back from Santa Barbara. So let's see. I think it's the 9th. So let's see if there's maybe Tuesday of that week, the 10th.
Yeah, I've got some forums, yeah, but
I could do morning or afternoon.
I've signed up for a bunch of workshops, but they're all being reported. So it's sustainability related no matter what.
I could also do Thursday that week too, the 12th.
They don't get, that's when the workshops do. So pick a day and I'll confirm with the organizers. We've got a call that they're being, the ones who don't go to are being reported. So,
okay.
EV.
Do you have any preferences, Roy, that week?
No, Tuesday would be fine. Thursday.
Okay.
If other things aren't meeting that month, it's pretty open.
Right. Okay. Well, let's maybe shoot for Tuesday the 10th. So it doesn't get too far away from us. All right. Okay, so let's focus on that. So we'll make an announcement tomorrow night. We will meet again August. We'll have our in-depth discussion August 2nd, and then we'll hold the 10th as well so that we can have a follow-up if we need to. So, okay.
All right, and so the kind of the instruction, the homework between now and the 2nd of August is basically review the sustainability plan with the idea of what stays in, what goes out, what's referred to other folks.
So we could have everybody do that, or we could divide up the plan. If we get a couple more people, we could each take 2 topics or something like that.
That's probably more efficient. I mean,
Yeah.
I can do energy and water just because that's my day job around here.
Right.
And other folks can, you know, do that. And there are whole sections like green jobs that, you know, is there anything that we keep or just that whole thing? So that may not be an awful lot of work, but
One thing we could do is also provide that spreadsheet. And I think that can be gone through quite quickly, and then we can use that as the basis of discussion.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
I think everybody should have input to every section.
Okay. All right. So here's what I would maybe suggest is that everybody could review the whole thing, but we maybe have a couple people lead a couple of the sections. So like David, energy and water, and then Roy could take a couple, I could take a couple, and then just so we have at least some in-depth look at each thing.
Right, and we've had experience. I think we could help guide the discussion.
Right, right. Like I'll take solid waste and recycling and I don't know, food and urban agriculture or something like that. So, yeah.
Just one point about the spreadsheet.
Yep.
The version I have, I think I formatted it so that if anybody wanted to print it, it would print in pages. When I got it, I think it just had been created and it wasn't formatted.
Okay.
If it would be helpful, I could send you the formatted one.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. All right, that all sounds good. Okay, anything else you guys want to cover today?
Just sort of an anticipation tomorrow. Just let me know what's being planned for both, just because meetings, there's a lot of meetings and things of whatever, but just let me know what's being planned for both cannabis and for whatever the planning commission is doing, because we need
Yeah,
to coordinate with that, and because I want to get folks from the state involved, and that's not necessarily overnight. So I'll mention that tomorrow night, but just sort of is, particularly since the Energy Commission is focused on getting the energy code approved on August 11th, I need fair amount of advance notice if we want those.
you're talking about the cannabis thing.
Well, it's both cannabis and whatever, it's on the agenda for tomorrow, but I have absolutely no idea what planning wants to do for commercial on solar. And is that just cannabis? Is that general? Whatever. That's, once again, I'm not sure what they want to study, and somehow we need to get back on that track. So I don't know whether you want me to write to David or copy you, or do you want to take care of that, or whatever?
I'll take care of it. I talked to him a little bit about it already. So
okay, that's fine. So I'll just, it's on sort of my bullet points for tomorrow night, but I wrote my notes and I said, well, it's being planned. And all I can say is the state has largely told us in both areas what we can and can't do, and we need to listen to that and reflect that. So that's my core message on both cannabis and more generally solar. Is there's limited jurisdiction for the city to do, and it's super complicated, as you will hear also for lighting. That's that's another tear out my hair issue.
Okay. All right. So I will also try to set up that meeting for us and Veronica probably for Thursday.
Great.
See if she's available.
Let me just quickly hold on here. I have actually nothing on Thursday. Hold on here tomorrow. Yeah, Thursday 22nd. So my schedule is clear until City Council at 5:30. Oh,
right.
Good day for me. And
Okay.
bring David in at least somewhat to agree with whatever. That's one suggestion or another, but to make sure he gets involved.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll check with her schedule and see what that looks like. And I also, I don't know if we need to involve Jocelyn in that or not.
I wrote not for the initial discussion.
Yeah.
Let's plan it, and then we, and then we look at the issues that we want to cover, and then who's there, and then we start looking for, who's going to speak to present on these issues. So let's have that initial conversation.
All right. Okay. That's a plan.
Patrick, could you send out the table that you've been working on?
Yeah, that sheet, I'll just send it to you with the notes in it too.
Great. And can I talk to you and Tracy for a couple of minutes when we're meeting tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I've sort of given my as an advance for tomorrow night, but the message is definitely coordinate with the other folks so we know what we're all doing. Okay. All right. I'll drop off and let you guys continue, and I will see you tomorrow at 5:30.
All right. Cool. Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Have a good rest of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
This will be quick. I just wanted to talk about the part where we do the election. I assume you'll run that. It's after the welcome and introductions, and then you'll take over that part. I know there's been one nomination. Have there been any others?
I don't think so.
I've
You
just
guys
received
think-
one.
Yeah. So we still have we have got nobody for the vice chair.
And I've had thoughts about that, and I guess we can just let things fall the way they do.
Mhm.
Do you have anyone in mind?
Well, Patrick and I have talked, and, you know, considering the fact that this is my last year, it would make sense to have somebody that could become chair following year. And Patrick and I also talked about, you know, Rob being vice chair, and I didn't aggressively involve him when I was vice chair. I didn't do much. And I think Rob is not a planner or a strategic thinker. He's good at working projects, and I felt it worked well and didn't need to bother him to be involved, like with agenda planning and stuff like that. But I think now, if I am chair next year or starting tomorrow, then we probably should think more about somebody who could be interested in and be able to take over. And one thing I thought of, and this, it's just totally inappropriate, is based upon the discussion that I had with Randy and that you had also with Randy and David, Patrick, I think he would be really great. But, you know, tomorrow's his first meeting.
Right.
You know, what you're now the vice chair, you know.
Exactly.
It just wouldn't work. I think he'd be really, based upon his experience and, you know, the things that he said, but it's just totally inappropriate.
Right.
I think the only other one would be Jim, but he doesn't always follow through on things, and I don't know that he'd aspire to be the chair the following year.
Right. He's not, I don't feel like he's that committed to the cause. He's committed to Jim's causes. So.
That's right.
Oh, we should stop our recording.